Hey, good afternoon. Today we're taking a look at a couple more codes. P0340 and P0335 are respectively camshaft position sensor circuit malfunction or crankshaft position sensor circuit malfunction. And depending on what kind of vehicle you got, you probably have 2-wire sensors or 3-wire sensors that are connected to the camshaft and crankshaft. And these two really have to do with the ECM not being able to detect a signal. And if you can't detect the signal, well, probably the engine won't start. Some cars do have a backup, and they will guess if you have one sensor or the other functional, but oftentimes you'll get this code with a no start, and because it can't detect engine speed or the position of cylinder 1, it doesn't know how to time anything. So I came up with a test, and this is something that usually you could do a resistance test across the terminals, but what we really want to see is if we're getting a signal at all. And usually the way that you would test a crankshaft or camshaft position sensor would be with a scope, an oscilloscope, which is expensive and frankly I don't have access to. When I worked in the shop, yeah, we did have that, but what if you're a do-it-yourselfer? What can you do? I want to show you a quick little test that you can do by setting your meter. I'm going to take a look at the meter now. What I've done is I set the meter to hertz, which is frequency. And since the camshaft and crankshaft position sensors are sending a measurable frequency to the ECM, that's how it measures engine position and speed. So today we're going to test on Serenity here. Going to test not going to test the crankshaft position sensor only because it's so inaccessible, but that's right here. This is the crankshaft position sensor, typical 2-wire sensor, and that is based off a notch that it's finding on the crankshaft. In this case, it's easier to access the camshaft position sensor right here, also a 2-wire sensor. And one thing that you want to be careful with, now you can't test it when it's disconnected because otherwise the engine won't start. So I used a needle to get past the weather packing and to make contact with the connector inside. And this is important because if you use something to pierce the insulation, you'll basically create a problem in the future. And I'm going to take this out actually to show you. Put that here. Okay. This is my homemade back probe. Is a sewing needle that I took a little bit of my diamond sharpener and took the point off because I don't want to actually cut anything. But I'm going to slide it in here, and I'm not sure if you can see it on the video, until it makes contact, and you'll feel it when it stops. Don't push it any further, or else you'll you could theoretically break something. And so I put that there. I got an alligator clip, and this is according to the repair manual. Oops. This here is camshaft sensor, and the black wire is the ground. So I'm measuring off of the white wire so that I can get the signal. And I took a second needle and stuck it into the ground so that I could measure the frequency coming off of this. And now let's start the engine. And of course, because my car is running somewhat, starts right up, and here we can see the hertz readout. Now it's not going to be steady, only because this is not really the right way to test it, but it gives us a good verification that we do have a signal coming off. And to show what happens when you accelerate, right now it's at idle and it's bouncing around between 170 and 205 maybe. We'll accelerate a little bit. See, now we're getting up to 320 to 380, a little bit higher. Now we're getting up into the 1,000 range here, 1,100, 1,200. And so just a quick way to verify that you have a signal coming off of, in this case, the camshaft position sensor. Crankshaft position sensor would work just the same way as would any of the 3-wire sensors, only you would have to make sure that you look at the wiring diagram to figure out what is the signal wire, so that you can measure the frequency coming off of that signal wire. Now, once you've verified this, if you still have a P0340 or P0335, then you have to figure out, okay, well, where am I losing the signal? And in this case, you're going to have to take a look at, let me shut the engine off. Now, having figured out where this was to begin with, now this is where my camshaft position sensor is, and the wiring we follow all around to this connector here. So a good way to test to see if we're getting a signal at least to here would be to disconnect this sensor and disconnect this junction connector and test the wires from end to end and see if we have continuity. And if we still have continuity but the no sensor code, then we would have to go inside the car and find the ECM, disconnect the ECM, and test from here to the ECM, which is inside the car, for continuity. And at that point, you should be able to find where that open circuit is and why you're losing it. That's all for today. Have a good day. Bye.